Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Empower Your Soul podcast. I am here today with a question from Dale over on YouTube, who asked me all about symbols and how can we work to, as evidential mediums, to improve our symbols to get better and faster at our mediumship. And this is a very interesting topic for me because in my beginner's mediumship class, I tell people over and over again that we are not focusing on symbols. And I think this is a misconception. Don't worry, I'm going to turn around and explain about the misconception and how it's not really misconceptions. But when you're doing mediumship, you are constantly hearing things, if you're obsessed with listening to all the TV people like I am, them talking about symbols. And I know recently on one of the Tyler Henry episodes, he actually flashed a picture of his page with all of his symbols on it. I 100% paused in that moment on that TV show and took a picture on my phone because I was intrigued. And this is something that beginner mediumship me would have killed for, is a list of everyone else's symbols that they use in mediumship. And I literally was wondering, because I also listened to Teresa Caputo's podcast, could I get an AI to go through and read all of her transcripts and pull out anything that says, that's my symbol for blank, right? Because I really want to know how other people receive these signs from spirit and interpret them. Because to me, that was always the key to unlock faster, better readings and giving me this direction of how I can get better at my mediumship, because all of the experts seem to talk about symbols. So I was not surprised at all in my beginner's mediumship class when my students asked me, what about symbols? And I responded that when you are starting, and this is still true, so this is how I'm responding to this question right now. If you are a beginner or early intermediate medium, generally things should be pretty literal. So most of the time, you should not be getting symbols. Things should be literal coming in from spirit, because it is hard enough reading the energy and learning the language of spirit without having to learn a language and also a symbol for what something is to interpret it. Like, it's hard enough to receive it, never mind to interpret a meaning that's different than the literal meaning of it. So for that reason, I always push back on my students that are starting this and saying, you will not get symbols yet. Okay? You're not going to get them for now. Take it as literal. What I have seen is how symbols start to form for people in my beginner's mediumship class. So I'm going to give my personal example. In one of the readings that I did with a fabulous woman, I don't know if you listen to the podcast, but you're going to know who this is. In one of the first group demonstrations I ever did, I was doing a reading of, I think, someone's dad or grandfather, someone they were like very close to. It was like a dad for her. And I kept getting shown a wooden box over and over again. Wooden box, wooden box, wooden box. And to me, it looked like one of those cheapo wooden boxes you buy at Michael's that you put little trinkets in as like a little kid. So it really looked nondescript to me. I'm like, I don't know what this wooden box is. And she was waiting for me to tell her what it was. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And she finally tells me that that dead person I was talking to, their ashes were in a wooden box upstairs in the house I was at. My mind was blown. I was like, okay, cool. So that's them saying cremation. They're calling this out as evidence that this is who they are. And a couple of readings later, that wooden box showed up again. And then a couple of readings after that, that wooden box showed up again. So now, because of this first reading where I learned, and it's the worst, I'm like, why did you have to start with the symbol? But it started as this wooden box is essentially evidence of cremation, that they were cremated and not buried. Now that has become my symbol from spirit that someone is cremated. If this wooden box shows up in my readings, I know that they're cremated. And that's how symbols will start to show up for you, is that you will see something over and over and over again. And the first few times you might not have any idea what the symbol is. You might have no idea. And the sitter can't take it. And I'm like, I don't know. So then you're like, I'm not sure. I'm going to let that go. And then the next reading it shows up and it's the same thing. And what you want to do is move into this recurring thing that keeps happening in your meetings, move into the energy of it. I don't care if it's a color, I don't care what it is, but you need to essentially figure out what this is. So if you're getting, what was one of the ones my students did? I think it was like a moose. A moose kept showing up. I'm going to go with a moose because that's what's popping in my head. So if you keep getting a moose in many different readings and you're like, why is this moose here? What I want you to do is lean into the energy of the moose. And when I say that, I mean literally take your energy and move it into this image of a moose. It's almost like you're going to go into the moose in your head and figure out, how does it make you feel? What does it remind you of, right? And this moose can maybe be this joy of finding something that, for those of us that don't live in moose country, like this mythical like creature, and uncovering this hidden thing and seeing it in real life and having it be more even mystical and amazing than you ever expected. So it comes with this it's this feeling of discovery and joy. So maybe that moose now is a symbol of uncovering something that they formerly didn't think was possible, but now they see it, they feel it, they believe it, right? So that's how symbols are going to start showing up, and how you start feeling into the symbol and the definition of the symbol. And this will naturally happen over the course of your mediumship. So more and more things are going to keep showing up over and over and over again. And you can work to discover what the meaning of the symbols are, either with your clients. You can, again, move into the energy of it and see if you can figure it out that way. You could ask your guides to show you the meaning of it. So a recent example of that is I kept seeing a room, and it was like looking down from above into a room where someone's wake was being held. And it was always looked like the same room over and over again, and the walls were green. And it was a very somber, deep hunter green. And I was like, I have no idea what this is. No one could take green. No one could take, so I was just like, I moved into it. I couldn't figure it out. And then I asked my guides, okay, can you help me explain what this was? And no word of a lie, a week later after I asked that, someone had sent me a card they pulled for me, and it was a card about a hunter green archangel. And at the bottom, it said how the hunter green is the color of a life well lived, and it is a celebration and a happy occasion. So now I know when I see the wake with the dark green, it is a happy celebration of life, and people are not sad at that wake. They are actually joyous and having a good time and remembering who this person is. So now I know for future readings, when I see that same symbol of looking down into a green wake room, that's what that's going to mean for me. So this is what I'm talking about. So you can work many different ways to uncover the meaning of the symbols. And then what I recommend is documenting it, right? Get out a notebook, get out an Excel spreadsheet. I don't care what it is, and start documenting and writing down what these symbols are. And know that some caveats here. Number one, your symbols are going to change over time, because they naturally do, because I don't see a wooden box for ashes anymore, like for cremation anymore. I can't remember what I do see. I think that now I see, like, if you're going into a funeral home, I don't know what the right word is, and you're picking out an urn, that's what I see now. I see rows and rows of urns, and that's how cremation shows up for me now as an image in my mind. So know that it's going to change over time. That can be a little frustrating, but you're going to learn more and more symbols. So you're going to have to refine it down, because at the beginning, a wooden box, I only saw that only on cremation, but now I see a wooden box if you have a jewelry box that was handed down, if you have something stored away, right? Like if maybe you bought a jewelry box for your daughter and they're bringing this in as recent evidence. So now they've changed that, and they realize that that's not a good representation of that cremation for me, and now they're going to change what that symbol is. So just notice, and don't be afraid to question, look back, change things. If you don't like a symbol, ask your guides to bring you something else. What I have personally found doesn't work with symbols is relying on other people's symbols. So I'm sorry, you cannot also go back to that Tyler Henry episode and rewind it. And I think it was the Kristen Chenoweth episode. I could be wrong. I think that's the one it was at. You can't go and look. I mean, it's good to look at it to understand where his perspective is, but you can't copy his symbols because they have to naturally come through you and come through spirit. So even if you have, oh my gosh, I have it here in this office, but there's a whole book you can buy of psychic symbols, right? And they have lines and lines and owls and bats and apples and they have like apple and they'll have an underline and what does that symbol mean for you? And spirit's like, don't waste your money, like throw it in the trash because it's not just, you can't tell what the symbol is. You have to experience it, and spirit has to know how to work that energy with that sign, with that symbol. So you can't just like create your own symbols and expect spirit to adhere to it because it doesn't work that way. Or at least it doesn't for me. If it works for you, please tell me because I would love, that would be way easier than me having to learn it over time with spirit. And then the last thing I want to say is symbols are overrated. They're overrated. They keep you dependent on your clairs. And I know that during your knowledge path for evidential mediumship, that there is a special place at a certain development level with symbols that they are really important in helping you become efficient in doing your reading. So I know there's a certain point where everyone loves them, everyone leans on them, and they're amazing. But the ideal state isn't to stay in symbol land. The ideal state, because most symbols come in your clairs as your clear seeing, clear hearing, feeling, right? Most of them come in and are very dependent on one clair. I see a snake and it means this. I see an apple and it means this. I hear this song and it means this, right? And that would be lovely. But there comes a point in every developing medium's development lifetime, I guess, where you can't rely on one clair anymore and you need to pull in multiple clairs at once. So when you see that apple, do you feel like you're standing in front of a classroom? Do you feel like there's a worm in it and someone's poisoned you? Like you start using that visual of an apple with the feeling of what's coming in, or maybe you're hearing like a teacher song or something like that. So you start layering the clairs on top of each other, and that allows you to break the need to have symbols because now you're using multiple clairs to really hone in on exactly what is the message with this thing that's coming in. So I'm not sure where you are on this journey. If you are a medium and you're listening to this, I want to honor wherever you're at. If you're at the beginning, go forward, start making those symbolic connections, start writing them down. If you're in the thick of the symbols and you love them and it works for you, stay with it. I'm not telling you it's bad. I'm just saying do what works for you. Or if you're someone like me that symbols have been, I'm going to say generally elusive. I have a few symbols, but I certainly don't have, pages and pages like Tyler Henry has, right? I have a couple dozen, maybe tops. And if you are like me and they are a little elusive for you and they are very inconsistent for you, then I would say you need to work on developing your clairs and layering them together to figure out what the message is, or hey, let's just all move to channeling. That's way easier than trying to figure out these symbols anyway. So I guess that's what I have to say about symbols today. And I hope that was really helpful. And I thought it was a really good question. If you are a developing medium and you want to learn how to get more symbols from your team, and by the way, you just ask them, or if you have other questions that you want me to answer, I would love to answer them for you. All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.